Let's get the very latest now from Tel Aviv in Israel. And we speak now to Trent Murray. Trent, good afternoon to you and thank you so much for your time. What's the very latest as far as that demonstration is concerned?
Yeah, well, they're travelling in buses, cars, vans, around 1,500 people, we are being told, across the north of the continent, with their destination being the border crossing between Egypt and Gaza. We understand the latest information is that many of them are in Western Libya right now, seeking to get into Egypt. I think the big question has been in recent days how the Egyptians will respond to all of this. Of course, in order to gain access to that crucial border crossing, they are going to need approval from the Egyptians to get there. We do have a statement from the Egyptian Foreign Ministry saying any visits to this volatile border region must be conducted exclusively through official channels, requiring prior approval via requests submitted to the relevant Egyptian embassies. It says requests or invitations outside of this framework will not be considered. Now, they have not named this convoy specifically there, but many are pointing to that statement as a reference to the idea that Egypt may just not allow them to get through here. Certainly a lot of Egyptian channels and key government supporters on the television and the like are saying that this is a PR trap for Egypt and they effectively want to try and avoid any sort of controversy. So we are tracking this very closely to see whether that 1,500 people or so will indeed be able to reach the Gaza border. I should also mention the Israelis, as you might imagine, keeping a very close eye on all of this. We have a statement from the Defence Minister here who has called on the Egyptian authorities to prevent the arrival of jihadist protesters, in his words, at the Egypt-Israeli border and to not allow them to carry out these provocations. He has also said he's ordered the IDF to make sure that there is no safety risk posed to the military operations in Gaza. So undoubtedly both Cairo and Tel Aviv watching all of this very, very closely. I think the next 24 hours are going to be crucial to understand whether this convoy can indeed make it to Gaza.
And indeed, because Trent, we are seeing some reports suggesting that there could have been some of the activists that would have been detained already, and some suggesting that this could be because they did not go through the proper channels. Are you hearing the same?
That's what I'm hearing as well, and certainly many Arab language outlets are reporting that Moroccans, Tunisians and Algerians are being arrested in small numbers, it should be said, but arrested as they've arrived at Cairo International. They've seemingly not taken the long journey of the convoy. It had been expected that at Cairo airport more people were going to arrive to try and join the final leg of the journey, but it seems the Egyptian authorities, from what we are hearing, are playing quite tough when it comes to their border rules. As I say, that statement is saying that anybody wanting to go to that volatile region needs to get the approval from the relevant embassy in their home country. Based on what we are hearing, many in the convoy have not, and they're just hoping that the Egyptians will wave them through. But the suggestions at this hour is that it just may not play out that way. That could change, of course. As I say, the next 24 hours really, really crucial here. Certainly the convoy is saying that it's made up of regular people, doctors, lawyers, students carrying medical aid, not only trying to deliver the aid to Gaza, but to also send a message globally about the humanitarian situation. It's worth remembering, because it's not often reported, that at that border, yes, there is a fairly large fence that's being constructed by the Israelis, but on the other side, the Egyptians have a very, very large border infrastructure with soldiers in watchtowers and tall barbed wire fences, and so the Egyptians have a pretty big role to play in all of this. And based on previous examples when people have tried to approach that border, the Egyptians run a pretty tight ship on their side of the fence, and so it'll be interesting to see whether there'll be a shift in policy and they'll let these people through, or whether they'll maintain that firm vigilance on the other side of the Gaza fence.
And Trent, this of course is happening against a desperate situation on the ground. For example, when you read what the UN even says about what is currently taking place on the 9th of June, describing it as the worsening humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip, saying that it's reached unprecedented levels of despair, with the UN saying on Monday this amid more reports of people being killed and injured near the newly established distribution sites.
Yeah, so these distribution sites being operated by the American-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. They're kind of the new kid on the block, if you will. in terms of delivering aid. They're effectively trying to wrestle the control away from the UN and to deliver it directly to the people, as they describe it. But we do know that this model has been highly controversial amid reports of the IDF opening fire at times at some of those desperate crowds of people coming to collect their packages of food. The GHF is still saying it is on the ground and it's working to do its job, but we do also know that they've released a fairly significant statement saying that overnight, around 10 p.m. local time, 2 busloads of their aid workers, local Palestinian aid workers on the ground, were attacked by Hamas. Now, obviously, we can't independently verify that because we're not able to get onto the ground in Gaza, given international journalists are not allowed access. But what the GHF is saying in a statement is that 8 of their Palestinian workers were killed in this attack. They're also reporting that several were kidnapped by Hamas. We don't have an official statement from Hamas to all of this, but as I say, we do know it comes against a backdrop of some pretty controversial moments that we've seen and serious incidents reported around GHF sites. At this hour, they say they're going to continue to deliver that aid, but it certainly seems the security situation on the ground remains very difficult.
And as you speak about the situation on the ground, one kind of in how to see some of the visuals that come through from there, that you find that it's people being caught between trying to get something to eat at the same time risking their lives. And this, I suppose, is also one of the things that is being raised by some of these activists as they're now looking to stage this particular demonstration.
Yeah, I mean, you see just the scenes of desperation, don't you, on the ground, but also defiance, I think, in many ways. I mean, we need to remember that the Hamas-run Interior Ministry in Gaza had been telling Palestinians not to engage with the GHF and to try and stick with the official UN channels. But those crowds on the ground suggest that they're either defying that order or they are just desperate to get food. At many times we've seen those distribution sites be overwhelmed as thousands of people arrive, line up, try and get their package. But we also know, of course, that the rules are sort of shifting day by day. So initially these sites were operating kind of around the clock. In the past few days, the GHF is saying it's only going to be open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. local time. And the IDF is saying anything out that time, it will be a combat zone, not to approach those sites. So look, incredibly desperate and difficult situation on the ground. I mean, the GHF is trying to say that it is working hard to deliver this aid, but we know that the UN, the Red Cross, Amnesty International, those existing groups that have been there a long time have been warning that this is just not the way to deliver aid, getting people to walk tens of miles in order to reach a site in the hot sun and then line up in big numbers. The UN has said that's not only a humiliating process, but it's also a dangerous one, and they are seemingly feeling somewhat vindicated, I think, in recent days with those warnings, given that we are seeing the security situation on the ground break down at times with reports of gunfire and sites being overrun with desperate people. I think what we are seeing in the past few days will certainly not allay the concerns of both the UN and some of the other aid groups that have much more experience working in the Gaza Strip.
Trent, stay safe. Thank you so much for that update. Appreciate it. That is SABC News correspondent from Tel Aviv. That is Trent Murray.